Lesson 11. The U.S. is a commercial nation and the Bible is a coded law book. Part 1. Peace, love, and light, Royals. Before we get into today's lesson, I want to ask y'all something. Are you enjoying these lessons? What have you learned so far? Has anything I've shared helped you see things differently? Did you hear something in these lessons that you never knew before? I want to hear from you. Drop a comment, share your thoughts, and let's build on this together. Now, let's get into something that will completely change how you see the world around you. The Bible is a coded law book. Here's the proof. Most people think of the Bible as just a religious book, but it's actually one of the most powerful law books in existence. The problem is that religion has distracted us from its true purpose. The same book that talks about faith, redemption, and salvation also lays out the laws of contracts, sovereignty, and commerce. The reason it has been used for centuries by the elite is because it teaches how power really works, but most people are too distracted by religious dogma to see it. The people teaching it, your pastors, bishops, and religious leaders, are under 501c3 contracts that legally prevent them from telling you the whole truth. Let's break it down. Proverbs 22, verse 7. The borrower is servant to the lender. This is contract law. Whoever holds the debt controls the terms. Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, not because of racism, oppression, or injustice, but ignorance of law. Matthew 5:25. Agree with thine adversary quickly while thou art in the way with him. This is a principle of commerce. Settle disputes before they escalate into legal judgments. Why this matters. The government and corporations use contract law to rule over people, and the Bible already gave us the blueprint on how to navigate it. But instead of teaching people about trusts, contracts, debt, and sovereignty, religious institutions tell people to just pray about it, while the system continues to fleece them. It's time to wake up. The U.S. is a commercial nation. Everything is about contracts. The United States does not operate under constitutional law. It is a commercial corporation. 28 U.S.C. Packer 3002-15A, the federal government is legally defined as a corporation. The UCC Uniform Commercial Code governs all commercial transactions in the U.S., meaning all crimes, fines, and penalties are processed as financial transactions. Hale v. Henkel, 1906. A U.S. citizen has no constitutional rights because they are classified as property of the federal government. Why this matters? Every time you sign a contract, accept public benefits, or interact with the government, you are engaging in commerce. The moment you identify as a U.S. citizen, you are seen as a corporate employee, not a sovereign national. The government does not come after you personally, it goes after your legal person, your all caps name. Key takeaway. If you do not understand your legal standing, you will always be held liable as surety for your corporate entity. The only true constitutional crimes are harm and murder. Everything outside of murder, assault, or physical harm is a commercial offense, not a common law crime. How the U.S. system works. Murder, theft, and harm equals common law crimes. Traffic tickets, drug charges, fraud, and tax evasion, commercial violations. Your person, legal entity is being charged, but if you don't challenge jurisdiction, you become responsible for it. Example, if you get a speeding ticket, the court is actually billing your corporate person, not you. But the moment you show up and answer to the name without challenging jurisdiction, you just agreed to be the surety. This is why they say, do you understand the charges? In legal terms, understand means to stand under jurisdiction. Key takeaway. You are not being locked up for breaking the law. You're being held accountable for failing to assert your legal standing. Coming up next, how to stop being held liable as surety and assert your rights properly. Stay tuned for part 2, where I break down how to stop contracting into these traps and start moving lawfully in commerce. Part 2. Now that we've uncovered how the Bible is really a coded law book and how the United States operates as a commercial corporation, it's time to talk about how you unknowingly contract into this system every day. Everything around you is based on contracts and legal presumptions. If you don't challenge them, they become facts in law, and that's how they trap you. The system is based on your agreement, even if you don't realize it. Most people believe they have automatic rights, but in this system, if you don't assert them, you don't have them. Law is based on consent. If you don't challenge legal presumptions, they stand as truth in court. If you don't assert your rights, the system assumes you waived them. If you don't correct your legal status, they treat you as a U.S. corporate citizen under statutory law. Biblical connection. Ecclesiastes 5:4-5. When you make a vow to God, do not delay in fulfilling it. It is better not to make a vow than to make one and not fulfill it. In legal terms, a vow is a contract. Once you enter an agreement, you are legally bound by it, whether you fully understood it or not. This is why the government and corporations push contracts, licenses, and registrations onto the people, because they know most won't read the fine print. How you keep contracting into the system without knowing it. Every day, people unknowingly enter binding legal agreements simply because they don't understand what they're agreeing to. Common ways people waive their rights without knowing it: signing a ticket or court summons without all rights reserved or UCC 1308. Not challenging jurisdiction before entering a plea in court. Applying for a driver's license, passport, or government ID without realizing it's a contract. Responding to mail addressed to your all-caps name without specifying your status. Legal proof, UCC 1308, allows you to reserve your rights in any contract. Prevents automatic liability unless proven that you knowingly agreed to the terms. Example, signing a ticket properly. Instead of signing John Doe, sign it as, without prejudice, UCC 1-308, John Doe. This means you accept under reservation of rights and do not waive any legal defenses. Key takeaway: you don't have to fight the system. You just have to stop playing the game on their terms. Courtroom traps and how to challenge jurisdiction. Most people get railroaded in court because they don't understand the most important rule: jurisdiction must be established before a court can proceed. The court's biggest trick. Judges and prosecutors assume you're under their jurisdiction unless you challenge it. If you don't question it, you automatically consent. How to challenge jurisdiction. Do you understand the charges against you? I do not understand. I require clarification on the nature and cause of this action. You just refuse to accept jurisdiction. Now the court must prove that they have the legal authority to proceed. If they can't, they must dismiss the case. Legal proof. Crandall v. Nevada, 73 U.S. 35, 1867. The state cannot impose regulations on sovereign individuals without their consent. Key takeaway. If you don't challenge jurisdiction, you automatically lose. Coming up next, the step-by-step process for moving in commerce and keeping your sovereign standing. Stay tuned for part 3, where I break down how to properly navigate contracts, government agencies, and financial matters without giving up your power. Part 3. Now that we've covered how the system traps you through contracts and jurisdiction, it's time to talk about how to stop falling for these traps and move correctly in commerce. If you don't know how to handle legal situations, contracts, and financial matters properly, you will always be at the mercy of those who do. The hidden power of words. How they trick you into consent. Language is one of the biggest weapons used to control people. Courts, government agencies, and banks use specific legal terms that sound normal, but mean something completely different in law. Examples of legal word traps. Do you understand? In legal terms, understand means to stand under jurisdiction. If you say yes, you just gave consent. You have to sign here. In commerce, your signature creates liability. Always read the fine print. This is a requirement by law. What law? Statutory law only applies if you contract into it. How to protect yourself. Always ask for the exact law they're referring to. Most of the time, they can't provide it. Never answer legal questions without first establishing your standing. If they're demanding something, require them to provide proof of jurisdiction. Key takeaway: the government doesn't force people into contracts, it tricks them into agreeing. The correct way to sign documents without waiving your rights. Every time you sign something, you are entering into a contract, whether you realize it or not. How to properly sign documents. Instead of just signing your name, always add, without prejudice, UCC 1308. This preserves your rights and prevents automatic liability. All rights reserved. This means you do not waive any legal protections. Example: if a cop gives you a ticket and forces you to sign, you without prejudice, UCC 1-308, John Doe. This prevents them from automatically assuming you accepted full liability. Legal proof, UCC 130H. This is the legal right to reserve all rights without being forced into an agreement. Key takeaway, your signature is powerful, use it wisely. Why you should never admit to being a U.S. citizen in legal situations. Most people don't realize that declaring yourself a U.S. citizen means you are accepting corporate jurisdiction. Legal definitions you need to know. U.S. citizen, 14th Amendment. This is a corporate status that puts you under federal jurisdiction. National, someone who belongs to the land but is not subject to corporate law. Sovereign, someone who operates independently from statutory control. How they trick you into confessing jurisdiction. Officer, are you a U.S. citizen? Correct response, I am a private national not subject to statutory jurisdiction. Legal proof, 8 U.S.C. paragraph 110A, 21. The U.S. recognizes nationals who are not U.S. citizens. Key takeaway, words matter, know your status, and claim it correctly. Coming up next, the ultimate blueprint for moving in commerce and keeping your sovereign standing. Stay tuned for part 4, where I break down step-by-step how to properly navigate contracts, government agencies, and financial matters without giving up your power. Part 4, final section. Now that we've covered how the system traps you through contracts, jurisdiction, and hidden wordplay, it's time to break down how to properly navigate commerce without giving up your power. If you don't learn how to move strategically, you will continue to be seen as a corporate asset rather than a sovereign being. How to handle contracts, government agencies, and financial matters properly. Every interaction with the system is a contract. You must learn how to control the terms instead of being controlled. Rules for handling contracts and legal documents. Never sign anything without fully understanding it. If forced to sign, always include without prejudice, UCC 18. Ask questions before signing, force them to clarify the terms. If a contract is unfair or unclear, do not agree to it. Example, dealing with a bank or loan agreement. We just need your signature to complete the agreement. Can you clarify if this contract assigns me personal liability? If they hesitate, that's a red flag. Key takeaway, contracts control everything. Learn to control them before they control you. How to assert your standing when dealing with government agencies. Most people hand over jurisdiction without even realizing it. The government assumes you are a U.S. corporate citizen unless you correct your status. How to correctly identify yourself in any legal or government interaction. Do not say I am a U.S. citizen. Instead, say I am a private national not subject to statutory jurisdiction. If they demand an ID, ask if it is legally required before providing it. Example, traffic stop. Officer, license registration and proof of insurance. Officer, am I being detained or am I free to go? This shifts the burden of proof back on them. Legal proof, 8 U.S.C. 1101A, 21. Nationals exist outside of U.S. corporate citizenship. Key takeaway. How you identify yourself determines how they treat you. The final steps to maintaining your sovereign standing. What you need to do. Moving forward. Correct your legal status and learn how to challenge jurisdiction. Reserve your rights in all contracts and agreements. Stop identifying as a U.S. corporate citizen in legal situations. Learn how to properly sign and negotiate documents to protect yourself. Final thought. The system is based on consent. If you don't assert your rights, you don't have any. If you don't challenge legal presumptions, they stand as fact. If you don't educate yourself, you will continue to be used as an asset. It's time to stop playing checkers and start playing chess. For those who want deeper study materials and tools to help correct their status, Cash App, Impress, PayPal, shayspeakstruth@gmail.com. Check out my t-shirt line and private resource library at shayspeakstruth.com, shayspeakstruth.com/ Like, comment, and share this lesson. Let's wake the people up. Peace, love, and light.